أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين مولانا وسيدنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض أرواحنا له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قالت فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها فرض الله الصلاة تنزيها عن الكبر. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight is our last lecture in this brief series where we are commemorating the tragic shahadat of the daughter of Rasulullah. We'll be looking at some of the historical events which led up to this incident. How did she leave this world? In which state? In which mind frame? Why, for example, the historical accounts of the different sects of Muslims are different on these matters? Why, for example, she was buried in a very unique way, which has never been seen amongst Ahlul Bayt? Why, for example, until this day, we don't know the location of her grave? All of these things, inshallah, will be discussed at the end of today's lecture. Firstly, let us begin where we left off yesterday with regards to our topic, which is how to improve our namaz. Now, if you remember, the point which I have been trying to emphasize again and again is that in namaz, especially in the beginning stages, it is a namaz in which we cannot expect a mystical unveiling, a spiritual overhaul in just a short amount of time. We have to start with the basics, and the basics are that, like it or not, tired or not tired, hungry, not hungry, in the mood or not in the mood, regardless of your personal position, Allah says, I want you to appear before me. You say, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. Oh Allah, you wanted me to be here, I'm here. One thing which we mentioned yesterday, and this is the point where I want to discuss today's lecture. We have to be brave, especially with our younger ones. We have to emphasize this thing in our families, in our madrasa. Everywhere we must be brave and say one thing. A person cannot simply live life with uncontrolled desires, lusts, whims, dreams. We cannot simply be in a state where we say, I will do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. Why? Because such a person, at the end of doing however they want, whenever they want, whatever they want, you'll see they'll come to a stage where they actually won't enjoy anything anymore. Why? Because they have broken all the boundaries. So now they need more and more to fulfill themselves. Because they've lived a life without any boundaries and without any limits. When you do that, your soul needs more to become satisfied and satiated. So sins lead to sins. Don't ever think that I will do one sin and then I'll repent and then it'll be okay. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes if the mercy of Allah is there, yes, inshallah, it can happen. But generally in the soul's discussion, when we discuss the soul, we see that it needs more. If you take it towards goodness, it will crave more goodness. If you take it towards evil, it will crave more evil. This is the way soul works. Hence, we have to be very brave and very brave with our children and our youth to say, you cannot just do whatever you want, whenever you want. Some limits and boundaries are good. One of the limits and boundaries which Allah places upon us is namaz. He says here you don't have any choice in the matter. I have told you to pray, you have to pray. You cannot decide, I want to pray, I don't want to pray, I'm in the mood for praying. No. It is a great disrespect to me as your Lord that you do not appear for prayers. Now, a question arises here. We are told in other places that with Allah you should be very free and He should be your friend. Ya Anisa man la Anisa lah. Don't we say in Dua Joseph? Oh, the friend of one who has no friend. We call him friend sometimes, we call him wali sometimes. Why? That means friend. So is it friendliness or is it strictness? Which one is it? Here we see the beauty of Shia Islam. The beauty of Shia Islam is it gives you a very sophisticated understanding of religion. It doesn't give you a one-sided, shallow understanding. Here, ulama say you must bring in yourself a combination of values. Sometimes you should know when to be free and friendly with Allah, and at other times you should understand when to be formal and strict in your presentation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the examples they give, which is a beautiful example, they say, for example, a mu'min, when he is sad, he smiles. You will never be able to tell a mu'min is in a bad mood. You will never be able to tell a mu'min is upset with something. Even when he is upset, he will smile. In Nahjul Balagha, saying number 333, Mawla describes this. Look at this beautiful hadith. He says, Qala fi sifatil mu'min. He says, describing a mu'min. It's a long hadith. We won't discuss all of it. This requires a whole, maybe 1 or 2 lectures in itself. But he says, Al-mu'min bishruhu ala wajhihi wa husnuhu fi qalbi. His happiness is always on his face, but his sadness is always in his heart. Awsa'u shay'in sadra. He has a very generous heart. Bada dil. He has a very generous heart. Wa adhallu shay'in nafsan. But he himself is a very humble person. See, Mawla is giving very paradoxical, contradictory sifat and qualities of a mu'min. This is how a mu'min should be. There are times when he has pain, but he won't show it. There are times when he is generous, but he himself is very humble. He says, يَكْرَهُ الرَّفْعَةَ وَيَشْنَأُ السُّمْعَةَ. What a beautiful sentence. He says, he hates high position and power, and he dislikes renown. His silence is much. His time is occupied. He's buried in his thoughts. He chooses his friends very wisely. He is a bright demeanor and soft temperament. He is stronger than stone, but more humble than a slave. This is a mu'min. You may say, well, where can we find such a person? They exist. We have to work on it to make ourselves one of them. Now, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam has a dua. Look at this wonderful dua of Imam Zainul Abidin. He says, Allahumma ja'alni. Oh Allah, make me. This is regarding parents. Oh Allah, make me ahabuhuma haybatas sultan. Make me fear them as if I fear a strict ruler. Ma baap, walidain. Make me fear them like I fear a strict ruler. Wa abarrahuma birral ummir rauf. But make me such that I be kind to them like a mother to her child. Sometimes you have to be very formal with your parents. I don't agree that in front of your mother and father you should do certain things, walau they are jaiz. Even if they are not haram according to Islam, I don't agree that in front of our parents we should be very free and very open. This is a slippery slope. Because kal saware, in the future, you will complain and you'll say they don't keep my respect. Well, you are too free with them. So at times you need to be formal, at times you need to be relaxed. To strike this balance needs wisdom. It needs a wise parent and a wise child. So sometimes we need to be fearful as if we're in front of a strict ruler. At other times we are very humble and very kind to them in our interactions. Now regarding father, as we discussed yesterday, when you see your father, don't walk in front of him. Don't sit before him. Stand up when he enters. And regarding mother, even more so. Mother occupies just a different position altogether. No matter what we say about father, mother is even more. Regarding mother, a man during the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was carrying on his shoulders his old disabled mother, and he was performing tawaf. Old disabled mother on the shoulders performing tawaf. He performs the tawaf. He then comes across the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet is there. He says, Ya Rasulullah, look what I'm doing for my mother. Have I discharged what she has done for me? I'm doing so much. Has she now discharged what haqq she has on me? Rasulullah says, no. You have not even discharged one of her breaths. Not even one of her breaths is discharged by you doing this. Mother is on a different level. Father has his place, but mother really is on a different level. So let us summarize what we have discussed so far. What we have discussed so far is we be polite in our prayers, we be respectful to Allah. These are the few points that we have discussed. Number one, pray on time. The main thing in namaz is you should be there on time. Don't delay your Lord. Number one. Number two, standing in a humble manner. Number three, observing each position properly. We discussed in lecture 2 yesterday the way to do takbir, the way to do qiyam, the way to stand, the way to do ruku, the way to do sujood, what happens in between the sajda, how to sit in the tashahhud, where you should look even, how your hands should be. These are all etiquettes of prayer. Number four, reciting correctly. When you go in front of someone and it's an important person, you rehearse your words. You don't just turn up. When you go for an interview, we rehearse. We even look online for resources of typical interview questions, and we rehearse our responses. In front of Allah, we should rehearse. Rehearse in what sense? In the sense that we should make sure our makhraj, our talaffuz, our pronunciation is correct. Why should we be in front of our Lord speaking in a way that He doesn't want to speak? He wants us to recite things properly. That's why He's given us a very complex language of Arabic. Arabic is there because it is the language of the Quran. Another point was that we should do some of the recommended acts, especially the du'as afterwards, especially the du'a in wudu. Another point was we spend time in our namaz. Another point was we don't rush our namaz. Remember one thing, brothers and sisters. If we are not respectful and polite towards God in our prayer, then believe me, we will not be respectful to Him throughout the day. Your prayer will reflect your mindset. Your mindset will reflect your day. If you are respectful and polite with Him during prayer, this will inshallah extend throughout your day. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what we have to do, we have to realize, namaz in the beginning is about routine, repetition. Sometimes this is boring, isn't it? To keep repeating the same thing again and again. Again I have to do those rules, again I have to do the same wuzu, again I have to stand, again ruku, sujood. It becomes boring. It is meant to be boring. It is meant to make you feel that this is a chore and a burden, and sometimes it troubles you. It is meant to annoy you. That is part of it, because it's taking you out of just following your whims and desires and into being humble in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I ask you a question. What do we say in all of our du'as? We say, for example, Allahumma ajjil li waliyika faraj. Oh Allah, send our Imam Zamana, Ajalallahu ta'ala farajuhu sharif. Send him quickly. Al-ajal, al-ajal. Right? We say that. I ask you, when Imam comes, let's say inshallah he accepts us, what will he ask us to do? He may ask us even to go for war. He may ask us to go for jihad. Are we ready to go for jihad when we cannot even splash water on our face at night? Are we ready to go for jihad and fight for our Imam when we can't even stand for 2 rakats in the early morning? Who are we kidding? So we have to be very realistic in this. This is why he himself, our 12th Imam himself says, Nothing keeps us away from our Shias except the sins of our Shias. That is what keeps us away from our Shias. Now, the fruits of this discussion, if we begin properly, inshallah we have begun, I hope, to properly pray in this way with respect and politeness, then there are certain fruits of this which we will see in our lives. There are 5 points which I want to discuss, and each of them we'll go through, look at some of the ahadith, look at some of the philosophy, and then we'll move on to some historical analysis. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi. The first thing is that if you pray your namaz in this way, it will begin to remove arrogance from your heart. Allah's greatness, to realize Allah's greatness, is the most important thing in namaz. Allah's greatness cannot be realized while the person himself thinks I am special. If I have a false notion of myself, I will never be able to accurately understand the greatness of Allah. Namaz helps us with this. When we stand for prayer, think for a moment. Talk to Allah in your own language. Before you start your prayer, talk to Him. Say to Him, Allah, do you see, I'm trying my best to be respectful to you. I heard that these were the rules of namaz. I'm trying to do them to my best. I'm observing your rules. I'm not moving, I'm not fidgeting, I'm not yawning. I've even sorted out my recitation. Even though this is not my language, I'm trying my best to master these words and these letters which are very difficult. Oh Allah, I realized Shaitan was ruined because he did not perform sajda. Look, I am performing sajda. Even though I don't want to do it, I will do it. Even though I want to do it quickly, I will spend a few extra seconds doing my sujood. Because once you do this, you break your arrogance. Arrogance leaves your heart, and then humility will come. When humility comes, many things come. The first thing to realize is that the Holy Prophet says, "Aksaru ahli jahannam al-mutakabbirun." Most of the people in hell are the arrogant ones. Most of the people in hell are the arrogant ones. Now, we find here, the Holy Prophet says, order your children to pray. That doesn't mean teach them to pray. It means order them. So probably you told them before. Order them to pray at the age of 7. They must be praying at the age of 7. Someone comes to our 8th Imam, Imam Rada alayhi salam. He had, I think, an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old boy, son. Imam says to him, "Oh, how old is your boy?" He says, whatever, I think it was 8 or 9. He says the age. Imam says, "Does he pray?" The man says, "He prays sometimes." Imam says, "A boy of 8 or 9 prays sometimes only?" Imam was not happy. Order your children to pray around the age of 7. Why? To remove from a young age the arrogance from the heart. To instill humility. Humility is such a beautiful quality of a mu'min. You know, one of the brilliant things about humility is that a humble person, everyone loves a humble person. And an arrogant person, everyone hates an arrogant person. Have you noticed? Unfortunately, sometimes people can become sort of impressed with arrogant people. They don't like them, but they get impressed because probably they feel scared. But humble people, generally from the heart, we love them. This is one of the gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2, this world will become insignificant. This is a very big one. As you understand Allah more, your recognition and respect for Allah increases. Your attachment to this world will become less. Amirul Mu'mineen says, "Azum al-khaliqu fi a'yunihim, fi anfusihim." The pious people are such that Allah has become very great in their hearts. فَصَغُرَ مَا دُونَهُ فِي أَعْيُنِهِمْ. Everything else appears insignificant. If you have greatness of Allah, everything else will not matter. You won't care about anything else. I'm not saying you'll become, God forbid, regardless and reckless of your duties. No, that's not what we're saying. But things won't matter to you much. They won't bother you. Someone said something, you will hardly even notice. Someone tries to annoy you, you will hardly even notice. Money worries, you will not even notice. Family issues, you will not even notice. Because why? These things are really insignificant. When compared to the greatness of God, these things become very insignificant. There is one dua of the Holy Prophet. If you are inclined, please remember this dua, recite it. Allahumma arinil ashya'a bima hiya. Very powerful dua. Oh Allah, show me things as they truly are. Very short, brief, sweet dua. Allahumma arinil ashya'a bima hiya. Oh Allah, show me things as they truly are. In other words, open my eyes properly. Open the eyes of my heart. Let me see things in a spiritual manner, with wisdom and insight. Now, attached to this discussion is recognition of the world and what it is. There's one brilliant hadith of the Holy Prophet. What he says is, Hubbu dunya ra'su kulli khati'atin. Very nice, very short. It'll give you the whole picture of what we're discussing. He says the love of the world is the root of all problems. Human beings' greed, their selfishness, wars, battles, racism, inequality. All of the issues you see in the world come from the love of this world. When we abandon hereafter, we become too attached to the world, it overtakes us. It overtakes our whims and our desires. Namaz helps us to rid of this. Namaz helps us to enter into a godly world where our first concern is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we understand this, then life can really improve. A Shia feels down, for example, has issues. He will not need, for example, counseling or pills or any of this kind of thing. He will remember Allah says something in the Holy Quran. I'm feeling down, my heart is not feeling good, but Allah says something. Allah bi-dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. It is with the remembrance of Allah that the hearts find rest. Now, I'm not saying don't go to your doctors. Don't get me wrong. There are situations, emergency situations, or someone is not in this mind frame, or there are chemical imbalances, for example, for which they must be referred. I'm talking generally, when you are on a good religious level, when you understand these things, you can substitute all of those things for the zikr of Allah. It will help you. One thing which Ma'sumin have taught us, Zindagi mein sukoon lane ke liye, to bring sukoon and peace in your heart and in your mind, they have recommended something very easy, very simple, very quick. 7 times after namaz-e-subh, 7 times after namaz-e-maghrib, recite the following. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. 7 times after namaz-e-subh, 7 times after namaz-e-maghrib. Why? Well, when you think about the words that you're reciting and the meaning of them, when you truly believe there is no power or strength except Allah, then nothing will bother you. Nothing can bother you, because everything else is very insignificant for you. You know that your whole existence and everything which is going to happen to you is in the hands of the most powerful. So then why do you worry? Why would you feel anxious? Again, I'm not talking about those emergency situations. I'm talking about generally for a mu'min's health, mental health, emotional health. These things are very powerful. Number 3, it builds a person's character. Namaz will build your character. You'll become independent. You'll become strong. Again, to the parents in the room, I will emphasize this point. Bring up your children from the very youngest of age to feel proud of being a Shia. They should enjoy that I am a Shia. They should understand what it means that I'm a Shia. They should be happy that I'm a Shia. In my own experience, we found a few things very helpful. For example, talking about religion regularly. For example, on the dinner table, put the phones away, put the gadgets away, and talk about your deen. Share with them some knowledge, share with them something you've heard. Make them feel proud of whom they are. Take them to ziyarat. Allow them to feel the presence of the Shia Ummah in Mashhad and Qom and Najaf and Karbala. Let them feel that yes, we are part of something very special. We have an Imam who is there, who is always looking after us. May his shadow remain upon us at all times. We have ulama. Introduce them to the ulama. Tell them about Imam Khomeini. Tell them about Shaykh Mutahari. If you don't know yourself, look it up. It will take a few seconds. Look up these facts. Tell them about Agha Sistani, may Allah give him a long life. All about different marajid. Tell them. We have found this very powerful and very helpful. Introduce them to Inqilab-e Islami. Tell them about Iran. Tell them about the struggles of the ulama. Tell them about the struggles of the people. How today, after so many centuries, 1400 years, we have a Shia country. Imam Hassan alayhi salam didn't have a Shia. Imam Hussein didn't have a Shia country. None of the Imams had a Shia country apart from Amirul Mu'mineen. Even then, with so many issues, it should be a very big pride for us as Shias. Now, the point is, make them independent from the pressures of people. Let's come back to our central point. When we say it builds character, this is what I mean. It makes us independent from the perceptions and pressures of people. They will not think then, oh my God, this looks weird. How will I do wudu? How will I stand and pray? This is very strange. People will judge me. People will look at me strangely. They won't care. Because they'll say, no, I know what I am, and I'm confident in what I am. And I'm proud of what I am. And I'm happy with what I am. There is a very interesting hadith from our second Imam, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. He says to someone comes to him and says, Mawla, to which kind of man should I give my daughter in marriage? He's asking for advice. I have a daughter, she wants to get married. What kind of man should I find for her? Mawla says, a person who is pious. He says, okay, what else? Mawla says, that's it. He should be pious. The man says again, Mawla, is being pious enough? Imam says, yes, because either your daughter is a good person or a bad person. If she's a bad person, then a pious person will be able to tolerate her and to guide her. Others will not tolerate her. And if she's a good person, it is a pious person who will thank her and know her value. It will build character. It will build, see, piety builds so many other things around it. Humility, patience, perseverance, tolerance, appreciation, generosity. Do you want to give your daughters to someone who doesn't realize this? If a person cannot be bothered even to break his own whims and lusts and desires and stand in front of God, then how will you take care of your daughter? She'll become a slave. Because she'll be always at the whims of someone who is just a lustful person. Look at our society today, the amount of betrayal, the amount of selfishness, the amount of aggression. It all comes down to this fact that people are very, very character flawed. They haven't built themselves properly. You'll say, well, there are still people who are not pious, but they're good to their wives. I don't deny it. But then you cut off the link to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are talking about the bridge and the connection between Haqqullah and Haqqul Nas. We have a religion which looks after both of these. Yes, some people may not be pious, they may be good to their wives and husbands. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you want someone who has dunya and akhirat, then they need to build their character. If I cannot be bothered even to get up and pray to my Lord who has done so much for me, what will I value my wife, who is also going to be doing so much for me? Think very carefully. We need to build Haqqullah, Haqqul Nas in our people. Fourthly, your will and your determination will be strengthened. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When you say labbaik to Allah, when you stand in front of your Lord, when you abandon everything for your Lord, you will find slowly but surely, one by one, your evils disappear. Namaz, as I said in the very first lecture, it is an individual recipe for each person. Namaz will treat everyone to his needs. And slowly but surely, you will see that the namaz rids you of your evils. As long as you pray properly, with respect, on time, etc., it will rid you of your evils. Look at this, that the Holy Prophet says, La yazalu shaitan da'iran. As long as a believer prays his 5 daily prayers on time, shaitan will fear him and will not come close to him to tempt him. But when this person ruins his prayers, shaitan will become audacious and will enter him into azaim, major sins. Either you build your resistance slowly with namaz, or you reduce your resistance slowly with absence of namaz. So namaz is a very good character builder. Number 5 and final, your good characteristics will be strengthened. Everyone has good in them, but it just needs to be awakened and strengthened. Some people are weak, others are stronger. Namaz helps you to become more strong. Once you battle your own will, you rid yourself of arrogance, you get rid of lusts and desires, you submit to a higher power, your inner good faculties will become stronger. The one thing it will rid you of, almost at the beginning, is self-indulgence. Thinking of yourself as very important. This is one of the worst things in a person, that he thinks I am the most important and no one else is. This is one of the worst things of a mu'min, to think like this, that I should be priority, everyone should do things for me only. Why are people not respecting me, honoring me, dignifying me? This is one of the worst things. Self-indulgence is one of the worst things. Now, Quran says regarding insan, that when insan feels very important, what happens when he is afflicted with difficulty? Because everyone's going to be afflicted with difficulty. So when an insan thinks, oh, I'm so important, nothing bad should happen to me. When it happens, what happens? He panics. He panics and he complains and he starts to wail and cry. And sometimes you think, you know what? I mean, come on. This happens to everybody. You're nothing special that is happening to you. Obviously, we don't say that, but sometimes we think it. Quran says the following, Innal insana khuliqa hulu'a. Indeed, man has been created covetous and greedy. He is created with this self-indulgence in him. He has to rid himself or control this. إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا. When he is afflicted by something bad, he panics, he complains, he wails and cries. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. But when something good reaches him, he doesn't want it to reach anyone else. He thinks, I shouldn't share this with anybody, don't tell anyone. If I find out something is there, a good thing, I'll say, don't tell anyone. So he becomes manu'a. He tries to hold it from other people. Except one group, which is this group, illal musalli. Except for those who pray. They have managed to fight against this. They don't have this kind of greed. Namaz has rid them of this self-indulgence and greed. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ. Those who pray properly, persistently, regularly, they will be rid of these kinds of traits and bad habits. Now, we have reached basically the end of our discussion. We have discussed many things. We have discussed the philosophies of prayer, the etiquettes of prayer, the respect of the prayer, and some of the fiqhi aspects of prayer. Inshallah, you pray for me, I'll pray for you. Oh Allah, with the haqq and the wasila of Ayyam-e-Fatimiyya, allow us to improve our namaz. Oh Allah, when we pray to you, give us the prayer of those who are respectful and polite. Oh Allah, give us the prayer that you are truly pleased with. Inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. khub Azizan Muhtaram, Azadaran of Imam Hussein, Azadaran of Bibi Fatima. Tonight is a very, very painful night for the lovers of Ahlul Bayt. Let us look at some of the historical events leading up to what we are commemorating tonight. It's very important that you understand these, especially the younger generation, to know what happened in the lead-up and why we are in the position that we are in. As I described in the beginning, that Janab Fatima had such a unique burial. A handful of people only, at night, in secret. No one to this day knows where her grave is apart from Ahlul Bayt. How did this happen? Well, we see first of all, the first incident was during the time of the Holy Prophet. He goes for Hajj. On the return from Hajj, he receives revelation. The revelation tells him, you must do something momentous. If you don't do this momentous thing, then you have not discharged your duty as a prophet. He gathers the people. They say 100,000 to 120,000 people. Those who have gone ahead, he sends riders, he tells them come back. Those who are still lagging behind, he sends riders and tells them hurry up. He gathers everybody in a place called Ghadir. Ghadir happens. A mimbar is created. Rasulullah goes on top of the mimbar. He then does something which leaves no doubt for the rest of history. He says, this Ali is your Mawla after me. In that situation, the people are kept there for 3 days. Each one of them is told, you must come and pay allegiance, bay'at, on the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The women are there. He says, even you women have to pay allegiance. They say, Rasulullah, hand. He says, no. We'll take some water in a dish. Ali will put his hand. You put your hand in the water as well. And then you give bay'at. Second Khalifa gives bay'at. First Khalifa gives bay'at. Second Khalifa even recites some verses. Bakhin, Bakhin, Yabna Abi Talib. Congratulations, congratulations. O son of Abu Talib, today you have become the master of the whole of humanity. This seals everything. But still it's not enough. Rasulullah still is not satisfied. After Ghadir, you would think Ghadir is the final thing. Rasulullah says no. He does some more. He goes for an expedition. In those days they used to do expeditions. They would go to a place and they would, for example, fight with those people who are aggressive to the Muslims. He goes to a place called Tabuk. There's an incident of Aqaba on the way back from Tabuk. What happens is, a group of so-called companions, we will call them munafiqeen actually, but okay, companions, they hatch a plot. They say, you know, this road back from Tabuk, it has to go through a very tricky place, a mountain pass. Have you seen a mountain pass? Mountain passes are very narrow. On one side, you fall off. On the other side, it's the mountain, so it's very narrow. They say this is one stretch of area. They call that Aqaba because it's a difficult road. An uphill road is called Aqaba. So this is known as the incident of Aqaba. They say when the Holy Prophet is at that moment, we will do something like scare the animals or push the animals, and they will topple over and the Prophet will be killed. Now it so happens that this secret plot, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to the Prophet that this is going to happen. And it so happens that he was aware and he was alert. And it so happens that those people who thought we are in the dark of night, it was at night time, we are in the dark of night, no one can see us, therefore we will not be punished afterwards, because no one knows us, we'll go very secretly. It so happens that at that moment, lightning struck, and the whole place became illuminated, and Rasulullah was able to see the faces of those people. He saw them, Hudhayfa saw them. Hudhayfa was one of the very brilliant, trusted people of the Prophet. Hudhayfa al-Yamani. Why Yamani? Because he was the Hamil Sirre Rasul Khuda. He carried the secret of the Holy Prophet. Which secret? The Holy Prophet told him, Hudhayfa, I saw the faces, you saw the faces. Until the end of your days, you are not allowed to reveal whose faces you saw. Therefore, he was Hudhayfa al-Yamani, the bearer of the secret of Rasulullah. Isn't it interesting that Umar later approaches Hudhayfa and says, Hudhayfa, you know the people that were there, don't you? He said, yes, I know. Umar says, was I one of them? You would think you would know. Were you there or not? Now, what does that tell you? Now, in the Battle of Tabuk, Rasulullah does something amazing. There is one person in history, no one can deny. In every battle, he is there and he saves the day. In Badr, he kills the most. In Uhud, when everyone flees, he stays with the Holy Prophet. In Khaybar, they tried, Abu Bakr went, Umar went, they went with the flag to try and win the day for the Muslims. They came back empty-handed. Again and again, this happens in every battle. One person was able to go lift the door of Khaybar. In Hunayn, he was there. In Khandaq, he was there. In all of the battles, the star of the show was Amir al-Mu'mineen. But Tabuk, Rasulullah, of all the people, you should take Ali. He says, I don't take Ali here. Oh, Ali, in this one, you remain in Medina. The best warrior, the most famous sword, the bravest of them all, the hero of Islam, you keep him in Medina. Why? Because he knew he was at the end of his life. And he didn't want a situation where someone else was in Medina. God forbid, he passes away, he leaves this world. He wanted Amir al-Mu'mineen exactly there at that time. He makes an announcement. He says, there's an army prepared for Tabuk. You are all to go. Except for Ali. Ali, I'm keeping back here. People were saying, Ya Rasulullah, the head of the army at that time was called Usama. They said, Ya Rasulullah, you're leaving us old people under the command of a young man. How can we follow Usama? We are more senior than him. We know more. We have been in more battles. He's a young man. Rasulullah says, La'anallahu man takhallafa an jayshi Usama. Curse is upon anyone who doesn't participate in the army of Usama. People are scared, they go. Two people remain. Abu Bakr, Umar. They don't go. Against the clear, explicit instructions of Rasulullah. So they remain in Medina. They know something is happening. And they are being fed information from the house of Rasulullah. One daughter is married, the other one's daughter is also married to the Holy Prophet. So they are getting information that this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. So they remain in Medina. Then we have the calamity of Thursday. The calamity of Thursday is now in the last few days of the life of Rasulullah. What happens? He is now extremely ill. He's not able to move freely. He's not able to speak very freely anymore. It was the last few days. He was extremely ill. He was in his house, basically on his bed in a weakened physical state. He says, I wish as a last thing for your advice from me, I wish to write something for you. Bring a pen and something on which I can write. In today's language, we'll say paper, pen and paper. Second Khalifa, Umar, says, this man doesn't know what he is saying. He is speaking nonsense. Don't give him these things. Sufficient for us is the book of Allah. How did you know what he was going to write? You must have understood that Rasulullah is going to leave behind his last advice, which he has been saying since day number one, that my Ahlul Bayt are very important after me. It is Ali, your Mawla is Ali, Ali is to me like Harun was to Musa. You knew there was something like that coming, so you stopped it. There's a kind of hangama in the room of Rasulullah. Some people are saying, give him. Other people are saying, no, don't give him. He's delirious. He's in a high fever. He doesn't know what he's saying. Rasulullah eventually is tired and he says, leave me alone. Go away from my presence. That is the calamity of Thursday. Then, 3 days later, he leaves this world. When he leaves this world, most of the Muslims, so-called, around Rasulullah, they leave. They don't attend to his body, they don't attend to his burial, they don't attend to his mourning, nothing. They go and they gather in a place called Saqifa. Saqifa was a place in which there was a kind of sheltered area called Saqifa in Medina, and they gathered there for a meeting. Where is Amir al-Mu'mineen? He is with the Holy Prophet. He is attending to his ghusl, kaffan, dafan, all of these things. Who is with Amir al-Mu'mineen? Salman is there, Abu Dhar is there, Miqdad is there, Ammar Yasir is there. All of these distinguished personalities are with Amir al-Mu'mineen, attending to the burial of the Holy Prophet. The rest of them are in Saqifa. Saqifa is a very kind of violent, very hot atmosphere in which different people are being put forward to become the ruler after Rasulullah. Eventually, I mean the details are there in the books, but just to make it very quick, eventually they elect. Even that word is not right. I cannot say elect, but there's no better word for it. They select amongst a few of them. When many people were opposed, they select Abu Bakr. They say, okay, we'll put him forward. Through a lot of compromise, a lot of discussions, eventually he is put forward. Amir al-Mu'mineen does the burial of Rasulullah. Amir al-Mu'mineen attends to the mourning of Rasulullah. This is the last prophet of Allah. Amir al-Mu'mineen and his few companions are there attending to the burial of Rasulullah. The rest of them, they are hatching plots and plans to seize the power. Abu Bakr is put forward as the ruler after Rasulullah. Now, look what Imam Khomeini says. Imam Khomeini regarding Saqifa, he says the following: Shuraya Saqifa, Rishe Tamamiya Ikhtilafat Musalmanan. He says the plot of Saqifa is the root of the differences of all Muslims wa aqaid batil and false beliefs wa bidumbal inhidam asas din bud, and it's the beginning of the attacks on religion. Saqifa. Now, what happens next? Well, now there is a very tricky situation which is going on in Medina. These people in Saqifa have selected Abu Bakr. Many of them are not 100% happy with that. Many of them are so annoyed that they even leave Medina. They say, we don't want a part of this. This is not right. Some genuine, some not genuine. Not genuine means they wanted it for themselves or their tribe. So they decide to leave Medina. Others tolerate. Others are happy. They begin a campaign. They say, hang on a second, we have a big problem. Our problem is Ali. What to do with Ali? He has supporters. He has people who remember Ghadir. He has people who still remember what Rasulullah used to say about him. He's the hero of Islam. He's the champion of Islam. He's done so much. So then they began propaganda. They say, first of all, he's too young. How can a young man assume leadership? Forgetting that Osama was just appointed a few weeks ago as the head of the army. And when you objected to Osama being a young person, Rasulullah told you, no, it is whom I select which is important. Don't look at age. So they say he's too young. They say he's inexperienced. They say he doesn't have political understanding. They said even to regarding Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's too jolly. So he shouldn't be given. We are better. We are more experienced. We are better statesmen. Amir al-Mu'mineen slowly but surely is sidelined. To the extent where, as I recited, I think yesterday, he He would walk in the markets of Medina, people would not say salam. To the extent where he would say salam to people, they would not reply. This was a hidden message that Ali is to be sidelined. Fine. Ali is to be sidelined. Now where does Ali go? Ali, Zubair, Salman, Abu Dhar, Miqdad, Ammar, these great personalities, they find refuge in one place. The house of Janab-e Fatima. That becomes the place of their refuge and their comfort. Allah. They are not welcome in the streets. They are not welcome in the markets. They are not welcome in the mosque. They are not welcome by the government of the time. They say, you know what? People are not supporting. We will take refuge. We will do the work of Rasulullah. Imam begins the work of Rasulullah, which is he begins to write a detailed tafsir on the Quran. This is the best language that we can use. I won't get too technical, but actually what he was doing was he was ordering the verses of the Quran in their order of revelation and putting alongside of it Sha'n-e Nuzul, where it was revealed, why it was revealed, how it was revealed. He was doing that. Now a number of incidents took place. This is history mixed with Masa'ib of Bibi Fatima, because from this moment on, Azizan Muhtaram, the sorrows and sadness of Janab-e Fatima start. And they are heartbreaking. How the Muslims could do this is just unbelievable. So the first thing is, imagine the scene, the masjid is there, Masjid of Rasulullah, Masjid al-Nabawi. That is the seat of government. That is where rulings happen, that is where audiences happen, that's where meetings happen. You have the house of the Holy Prophet, just there as well. Next door, in the same vicinity, you have the house of Janab-e Fatima. Now imagine people are looking. Where is Ali? Where is Zubair? Where is Salman? Where is Abu Dhar? Where is Miqdad? People are talking, everyone's whispering. And this is getting to the rulers. And they're not happy with this situation. They're like, how dare they ignore us? They should come and give bay'at as well. Everyone else has given bay'at. If Ali comes to give bay'at, then really it will be a great achievement. Because then all the whispers and all the rumors will stop. They say, Amir al-Mu'mineen is in his house. And he has said, I will not come out until my work on the Quran is done. And Salman is with him, and Zubair is with him, and others are with him, and they are all taking refuge in the house of Fatima. Umar says, in that case, we will flush them out. Someone says to Umar, you will flush them out? But the daughter of your Prophet is in the house. Umar says, let it be. We will flush them out by force. Now here is an interesting question which comes. The question is, if what happened, how can, for example, Amir al-Mu'mineen send Bibi Fatima to open the door? This is a question which comes. Why would Amir al-Mu'mineen, with all his honor and dignity and understanding, why would he send his wife to open the door? There are three answers here. The first is that this is a complete misconception. In one of the books of history, we see the following. We see that actually at that time, Janab-e Fatima was not sent. It's not that Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Fatima Jan, go and answer the door. No. It says that the door was slightly open and she was near the door. And when she sees this rabble coming, she herself, because she was near the door, she closes the door. This is number one. Number two, another way of answering this is that she imagined that they have a problem with Ali. They will respect me. I'm a woman. I'm the only daughter of your Prophet. I am pregnant. I have young children in the house. By seeing me, they will feel a bit of shame. Just now, if you have a row with someone, and that person's mother comes along or that person's wife comes along, you'll say, you know what, let's leave the mamla. This is not respectful in front of a woman to do this. So that is the second response. The third response is, even if we accept this, even if we accept your argument that why did Ali send Janab Fatima, which we don't accept, but for a moment, farz inke, we accept it for a moment. Well, the Holy Prophet in his life, it is recorded, he would send, for example, there's one report, he sends Salma to open the door. So if Ali has a problem sending his wife, then you have to say the Holy Prophet has a problem sending his wife. So what happens is that she closes the door, but they come with force. Now this is happening in a very short time, very quickly things are transpiring. Ali alayhi salam with his ashab was in a different area of the house. Janab Fatima was at the front of the house. She closes the door. They say that the next thing that happened is that the door is hit again and again. Maybe with hands, maybe with feet, maybe they're kicking, maybe they're punching. But the door is hit with great force. She says something from behind the door. She says, I am the daughter of your prophet. Umar says, so what if you are? They bring Qunfud, is the slave of Umar. Umar himself was very brutal. Qunfud also was very brutal. He brings forth wood and puts it at the door of Janab Fatima. Tonight we give our bursa to Imam-e-Zaman, really. In every shahadat of every imam, in every shahadat of every bibi, even all the shuhada in Karbala, we give our bursa to Bibi Fatima. But for Bibi Fatima, we give our bursa to Imam-e-Zaman. Why Imam-e-Zaman? Because after, as I'll recite in a moment, after Fadak, Bibi says something. She says after the Fadak document is ripped up, after she is beaten in the streets of Medina, she says one thing. She says, let me tell you one thing. A day will come when my son Mahdi will come and he will take these revenge of everything you have done to me. The wood is placed at the door. The wood is set alight. The fire begins to burn. The fire can be seen through the cracks of the door. Janab Fatima says, I am here behind the door. In other words, don't do more than this. Now desist and move. Go away from here. Umar again says, we will break the door. They say the door was pushed and burned and kicked and punched with such a force that Bibi was behind the door. One of the nails of the door became loose. As the door became unhinged, it released upon Bibi herself. She was caught between Dar and Diwar, between the door and the wall. And the nail of the door hits Bibi in such a way that she begins to cry out, Fidda, Ilayya, Ilayya, Fidda, come help me. My Mohsin has been killed. Janab Fatima at that moment is so hurt that Amir al-Mu'mineen and the other ashab, they come out. Zubair, they say, unsheaths his sword. But before he can do anything, the sword is hit out of his hand and falls on the floor, and they jump on Zubair and they take him. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sher Khuda, Haydar Karrar, hero of Islam, he says something at that moment. He says, you people understand one thing. I have given my word to Rasulullah. If I had not given a promise to my beloved Prophet that I will remain patient after him, I would have finished you all. They take Ali by force with a rope around him to the court of the Khalifa. At this moment, after Janab Fatima gathers herself, they say, she says to her maid Fidda, she says, Mother Fidda, bring my abaya, bring my chadar, put it over me. I am going to the grave of my father Rasulullah. And she goes to the grave of the Holy Prophet. And what does she say? She says, Ya Bata, Baba Jan, I didn't complain. When you were taken from this world, I didn't complain. When we had to live in poverty, I didn't complain. When so many things happened to us, I didn't complain. In all of these things, I didn't complain. But today, my honor, my dignity, and my beloved Ali has been taken in front of my eyes. Rasulullah, I have come to complain to you. Amir al-Mu'mineen is made to be present in front of Abu Bakr. They say, oh Ali, you have not given your allegiance. You need to give it. He says, I should give you or you should give me. And he says to Umar, you are doing him a favor today. So tomorrow he will do you a favor. He knew the plot, he knew the plans, he knew all of this. After some time, Amir al-Mu'mineen is released. He goes home, back to his home. His children are there. This is just days after the Rehlat of Rasulullah, remember. The children must still be mourning over their grandfather. The children must still be crying over the separation from Rasulullah. Few days pass, and what happens? It is made known that the property of Fatima, known as Fadak, has now been usurped by the government. Fatima says, this is unacceptable. She again adorns her chadar. She goes into the darbar of Medina, the court of Abu Bakr, and she gives a speech. When she is giving her speech, people are amazed at the eloquence and the beauty of the speech of Bibi Fatima. She produces a document. She says, look, you say this was not mine. Look, my father wrote it. This is his document to me. She passes it to Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr reads it and says to Umar, look, she's right. She has it in writing. Umar says to Abu Bakr, don't you dare accept. If you accept today, Fadak is right, then tomorrow she will even go after the rulership. Whatever we agree today, it will set the scene for the future. Umar looks at Janab-e Fatima. Janab-e Fatima has this one document from her beloved father. How beautiful and how beloved must that document have been to Janab-e Fatima. Umar, in front of Janab-e Fatima, tears the document in front of her and throws it on the ground. They say that as Bibi was walking home, that was not the end of the zulm of that day. They say that people were sent after Bibi in the alleys and kuchas of Medina, and they had hit Bibi in such a way that she now bore the bruises of their beatings after the shahadat of Bibi Fatima. There is a narration in which Imam Hassan alayhi salam is seen to be crying and so upset. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was not as upset in that moment as Imam Hassan. They looked at Imam Hassan, the people came to Imam Hassan and said, oh Hassan, you have to be strong, you are the elder brother, why do you cry so much? Hussein is not crying so much. You know what he said to them? He said, I cry so much because on that day, Hussein was not with my mother when we left the court of Abu Bakr. Hussein did not see what they did to my mother. I saw what they did to my mother, and I cannot forget this. These were the days, the dark days in the history of Islam. Bibi then regularly, she occupies a space in Medina. She is so heartbroken, and she has every right to be upset with the people of Medina. They say that now she begins lamenting and weeping. On a daily basis, she would go to a certain tree. She would sit under the shade of that tree, and she would weep and she would wail for the difficulties that were coming upon her. She would wail so much that the people of Medina, eventually they came to Ali. They said, oh Ali, tell your wife, either she should cry in the day or she should cry in the night. She's crying all the time. Then what did they do? They cut down that tree under which Janab-e Fatima used to sit and cry. And she says at that moment that when I meet my father, I will tell him, oh father, your community did not even allow me to cry when I wanted. Amir al-Mu'mineen builds for her something in Baqi. In Jannatul Baqi, he builds a small structure known later as Baytul Huzn. the house of sorrows. And here Janab Fatima would go with Hassan and Hussein alayhim salam and cry there and weep there. And so the days and nights would go by. Either she would go to Baytul Huzn, or from time to time she would come to the grave of Rasulullah. And people would hear her saying one thing again and again. Abata Baba Jan, Subbat alayya masa'ibun, law annaha subbat alal ayyami, sirna layaliya. Oh Baba, oh my father, such sorrows and tragedies have come upon me. If they would have come upon bright days, those bright days would turn into dark nights. If they came upon mountains, those mountains would crumble under the grief that I am going through. In this way, Janab Fatima, slowly but surely, she withered away. In the age of 18, have you ever seen someone wither away like Fatima withered away? Until slowly but surely the day arrived. On this day of her shahadat, Ajrukum alallah azadarum, Ajrukum alallah, we send our condolences to Imam Zaman. On the day that Fatima is leaving this world, she does a number of things. The first thing is, she calls Amir al-Mu'mineen. She says, Ali Jan, I want to give you my will and testament. Ali alayhi salam sends everyone else out of the house. He sits with Janab Fatima. He says, Fatima, tell me, I will do anything for you. The first thing this amazing lady says to Amir al-Mu'mineen, she was so humble, she was so pure. The first thing she says to him, Ali Jan, have I hurt you or disappointed you in any way in the days we have been together? He says, oh daughter of Rasulullah, you have never done anything which has ever upset or hurt me. He says, Ali Jan, I will give you a few of my testaments and my wishes. He says, I will do anything for you. She says, number one, look after my children. Hassan at that time was 7 years old. Imam Hussein was 6 years old. Bibi Zainab around 5 years old. Bibi Kulthum around 3 years old. She says, Ali, look after my children after me. Marry my cousin after me. She will be a good mother to my children. And then she says something very special. She says, Ali, take care of all of them, but especially take care of my Hussein. My Hussein is very, very close to me. He will find it very difficult after I leave this world. Hussein will find it very difficult. Oh Ali, you are to look after Hussein in particular. Bibi, I don't know how to say this. Where were you on Ashura, Bibi, when you were telling Ali to look after Abdullah on the night of Ashura? When Hussein goes out into Karbala with his ashab, he shows them. He says, here you will fall, O Habib. Muslim ibn al-Sajjad, this is your place of shahadat. He shows each and every one of them their place of shahadat. They say, Mawla, these are our places of shahadat. Where is your place of shahadat? He says, here is my place of shahadat. They say, Mawla, this looks different. This looks like someone has come and cleaned the area. He says, yes, my mother has come to clean this area. She has prepared this area for me. When I fall from the horse, this is where I'm going to fall. Allah. She says, Ali Jan, these are my last wishes. And one more wish. He says, yes, Fatima, tell me. She says, Ya Ali, Ya Abul Hasan, غسلني بالليل ودفني بالليل وصلي علي بالليل. Oh Ali, my last testament is, you must give me ghusl at night, give me kafan at night, bury me at night, pray namaz-e-janaza over me at night. He says, why? She says, these people who have done so much bad to me, I am not happy for them even to come to my janaza. I don't want the people of Medina at my grave. I do not want them to participate in my funeral. Amir al-Mu'mineen embraces Lady Zahra. He leaves and he goes to the masjid. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein are there. She says to Asma, she says, Asma, bring me a change of clothes, bring me some water. She bathes Imam Hassan, she bathes Imam Hussein, she makes them food, then she sends them on their way. She says, go to the grave of your grandfather, send him my salams. The two young Imams go to the grave of Rasulullah. Then she says, Asma, these are my last moments in this world. She says, Asma, I'm worried about one thing. She says, yes, oh daughter of Rasulullah, what are you worried about? Bibi says, Asma, when they carry my body, I am worried that people will see the shape of my body. Asma says, don't worry, I will tell you something that we had seen in Abyssinia. Who is Asma? She is the wife of Ja'far al-Tayyar. They spent some time in Abyssinia. She says, in Abyssinia, they have one good practice. They don't carry them on the board like they do here. They make a wooden coffin for them. Would you like me to make a wooden coffin for you? She says, Asma, do the preparations. Get me such a coffin. Asma arranges. In some time, Bibi says to her, now Asma, put me on my bed. Put the bed in the middle of the yard of my house. Turn me so that my feet are pointing towards Qibla. Asma understands what is going to happen next. Asma says, how will I know if you are still with us or you are not with us? She says, you will keep calling me. When I answer you, you know I am there. When I don't answer you, you know I have left this world. Asma calls her, Ya bint Rasulillah. Janab Fatima answers. After a while, Asma calls her, Ya bint Rasulillah. Bibi Fatima answers. After a while, Asma calls, Ya bint Rasulillah. Fatima doesn't answer. Asma knows that now my lady has left this world. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they come home after a time. Asma looks at them. These are now the orphans of Zahra. Asma says to them, come, you two boys, sit down, let me feed you. They look at Asma. They say, oh mother Asma, this is a strange thing you are saying. Have you ever seen us eat without our mother? Where is our mother? Asma cannot bear it anymore. She says, your mother is in that room. When they go inside the room, they see that Fatima has left this world. They begin to cry. The first thing they think is, we need our father. They run from the house into the masjid. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Sher Khuda, Haydar Karrar, the hero of every battle, the strongest man in the whole of Islam. When they tell him, oh Baba, we are giving you some news. Our mother has left this world. Ali falls down unconscious. When he hears this, he cannot bear it. When Ali comes back to the house and he sees the body of his beloved Fatima, he then begins the preparations. He understands what needs to be done. Azadaran of Imam Hussein. My last few sentences. They say that in history, there are three personalities that when they were giving ghusl to the mayyat, they had to stop in the middle of the ghusl. They could not bear what they could see any longer. The first is our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir. When he was giving the ghusl mayyat to his father, Imam Zainul Abidin, they say that in the middle of the ghusl, when he saw the bruises on the back of Imam Zainul Abidin, he had to stop the ghusl. He had to stop the ghusl and he had to cry. And then he continued. The second person that had to stop ghusl midway is in the prison of Sham. When Zainab came to give the ghusl to Sakina, she could not bear the sight of the damaged body of Janabi Sakina. She had to stop there. She could not continue. And the third person that was giving the ghusl but had to stop is none other than Ali-e-Murtaza, Sher Khuda, the Lion of Allah. In the midst of the ghusl, he stops, he drops the jug of water. He begins to cry. Asma comes. Oh Ali, you are Asadullah. You are the Lion of Allah. What has made you so upset? He says, Asma, I never realized the extent of the bruises and the broken ribs of Fatima. Janabi Amirul Mu'mineen completes the ghusl, he completes the kafan, he completes all of the preparations. At night time, a small group of mu'mineen along with Amirul Mu'mineen, they say 14, no more than 14 people, participated in the burial of Shehzadi al-Kaunayn. They take the body at night. What did she say? She said, Ya Abul Hasan, ghassilni bil-layl. Wash my body at night. وَكَفِّنِّي بِاللَّيْلِ وَدَفِّنِّي بِاللَّيْلِ. Bury me at night. They are walking towards the grave in the darkest of nights. They place the body of Janab Zahra inside the grave. Here it is the point where the sabr of Amirul Mu'mineen is broken. He looks at the grave. He looks at Janab Fatima. He looks towards the grave of Rasulullah and he recites the following. He says, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. Peace be upon you, O Prophet of Allah. From me and from your daughter, my sabr is broken. My nights have become sleepless. O Rasulullah, this is the amanat which you had given me, and I am returning back to you. But this is not the same Fatima which you had given me. You had given me Fatima, but I am returning her with broken bones, and with bruised body, and with broken heart, and people have been so cruel to her. O Rasulullah, ask your daughter, what did your own people do to her after you left? وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون مات الحسين